Now, I may disagree with their position, but I wouldn't tell them ipso facto that's an irrational basis for your opinion. Now, I will tell you, though, that, and you've probably noticed this tonight, I don't appeal to my faith for why I take the positions I do on public policy issues. That's not the basis for why I make my appeal. I think that you have to understand, I'm Catholic with a small c in my view of human nature. I think if it's right, in the sense of being according to nature and nature's law, then it works. Okay, if it's of God or the Creator, whatever your belief is, then by definition, He doesn't create something that doesn't work. Okay, so if a husband loving his wife and a wife loving her husband and children honoring their parents and parents investing in the lives of their child, if that didn't work, then I wouldn't be for it. It just happens to work.
I understand, but you're comparing instances of destruction and violence to the rights of certain people, and understand why those things are wrong, and a lot of people do understand why those things are wrong, but I feel like because you're in a position of power, your right is more right, and I feel like your basis, because it's your belief, certain things you can say, this is right and this is wrong, but in this case, it's generally a matter of opinion, and because you're in a position of authority, you're saying that you're right and other people are wrong, when it doesn't come down to that with certain issues. But
I hear you. Yeah.
Just deviating a bit. So you're in the business of PR, and we've talked a lot about the current administration having obviously some issues, and possibly regaining some of their momentum that came in with the election. Democrats. What would you recommend, I guess, grounded in policy issues and initiatives? What would you recommend, say, the Obama administration to regain some of the momentum they came in with?
What can they do to get back on track? Is that what you're asking?
Right.
Well, you're probably going to think this advice is offered facetiously. It's kind of like that great New York Times front page story where they were talking about when Karl Rove left the White House and he went to Fox News as a contributor, and somebody would ask him a question like that on air, and then he would offer unsolicited advice to the Democrats, and it was all about, now, is he really offering advice that he knows will destroy them in hopes that they'll take it? I'm not that calculating. I really believe the best thing that could happen for Obama would be for Pelosi to come up short, on her whip count, and then for her to go back to Obama and say, look, I tried, I don't have the votes. And then for him to go back what at least reportedly was originally advocated by Rahm Emanuel and some others inside the White House, which was, look, let's do this incrementally. Let's pass a law saying no one can be denied insurance based on a previous condition. Boom. If you brought that bill to the floor tomorrow, you get 400 votes in the House. Certainly 350. Then let's take the momentum of that and let's pass a buy-in provision for people over the age of 50 who want to buy into Medicare, and we can subsidize people below a certain income level. And you just keep building the momentum. I've had a lot of friends in politics who, with very good intentions, have tried to pull off sort of generational, reforms. And historically, it just doesn't get done except on a bipartisan basis. I mean, people forget the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a bipartisan act. Everett Dirksen delivered more Republican votes for the Civil Rights Act than the Democrats did in the Senate. So, I don't recommend that this kind of stuff be done on a straight party line vote. That would be my advice. But at the risk of stating the obvious, they're not going to listen to me. And I really believe that they're gonna rue the day they ran this thing through. But we'll see. That's what elections are for. I'm going to take one more question back here in the corner.
Again, deviate a little bit. Do you kind of characterize Christian groups in general tonight as somewhat marginalized in U.S. politics still, not in a place of prominence, and yet I've heard a lot of counter arguments. Most recently, Jeff Charlotte's book entitled "The Family" in 2008. He did a big book tour talking about how, in reality, Christian groups have a huge sway over American politics and have secret cabals that meet regularly and decide policy. Just can you kind of give me a counter argument to that, and maybe give me a perception of where you think realistically they fit in that spectrum of far too powerful to marginalized?
Well, what I was trying to say was that they had been marginalized in the past, but I don't think they are anymore. If you go back and you look at the exit polls in 2008, and these are network exit polls, 23% of the entire vote came from self-identified born-again evangelicals. And they voted, I'm doing this from memory, so I might be off a point or two, but they voted 72% for John McCain and 26% for Barack Obama. So roughly 3-to-1 for McCain. They were one of the largest single, constituencies in the electorate, bigger than union households, which is 14% of the electorate, bigger than African Americans, which was 14% of the electorate, bigger than Hispanics, which was 9% of the electorate. This is a huge number of votes. And you have to remember, it's not spread out evenly. So while it's 23% of the entire vote, in the South and the Midwest, it approaches 30 to 35% of the vote. Smaller in the West, Pacific Northwest, and the Northeast. So it's kind of like the union vote or the minority vote in that it's a big chunk of votes, but it's also heavily concentrated in some states. So I think it's going to continue to, you can't have 30 million voters and not be a force. The only issue is, are they going to have a candidate who knows how to deliver as articulate a statement of their values as Barack Obama was able to do for his supporters in 2008. They've really kind of been waiting for that ever since Reagan. I think Bush came the closest of anybody since then, meaning Bush 43. So that's what they're really looking for, and that's part of the drama or the subplot that will play out in the 2008 Republican primaries. Getting back to the question earlier about 08, I mean, if Palin runs and Newt runs and Huckabee runs and Pawlenty runs and who knows who else runs, you're going to see all those candidates trying to make the case to those grassroots religious conservatives, I'm your person. And that'll be a very interesting sort of subplot. Well, this has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed being with you, and thanks for having me at Occidental College.